In this one, I'm going to construct a for loop and walk you through it very carefully and meticulously. Here's our goal, very simple. Print 1, 2, 3. Make it 4. You need to make preliminary observations. Forget about just jumping into coding. What's the first value? 1. What's the last value? 4. What's the increment? How do you answer that? From 1 to 2 is 1 more. From 2 to 3 is 1 more. From 3 to 4 is 1 more. That means the increment is 1. Now that you've made these preliminary observations, construct your loop. 4. Int I, so you're declaring a variable. It doesn't have to be called I. You can call it Bob if you want. That's not important. I is just usually is the one that is used. What's the initial value? 1. So you put a 1 in that place. Stop. Now you have to decide on how to construct the logical condition in the middle of the loop. How do you do it? Well, I will represent the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4 in turn. It's a variable. It represents changing values. What's the last value? 4. That means you got to type something like this. You cannot just type I, for example, is less than 4, because that would be 1, 2, 3, making that true. What about the 4? You need to have less than or equal to. Semicolon. The increment is 1, so you can't just put a 1 in there. You got to put, in other words, I plus plus, because the increment is applied to the variable I. That's the loop. Header. Now let's add a bit of text that does console.writeLine. And then we're going to use string interpolation. So dollar symbol, double quotes, I in brown equals, anything in brown gets sent to the screen in that form. And then within curly braces, you put a variable like I, and then you terminate this with a semicolon. The goal is not to just execute this. I really don't care about that. I want to run this with the debugger and step into feature so I can understand what the pieces are doing. So debug, step into. All right, so step into here. Notice what happens to the execution of the code right here. Let me zoom in even more. Notice this is where it holds. It holds on the declaration and assignment of the variable. Okay, then you go on to the logical condition. Put your mouse over I. I is 1. That means that the logical condition is true. Why is the condition true? It's true because of the less than part, not because of the equal to part. They're there for different reasons. You got to understand that. So then you're going to run console.writeLine, and it takes you to I++. That's the one that increments the value that I represents. Hops back over to the logical condition. Put your mouse over I. It's 2. Is this true? It's true again because of the less than part, not because of the equal to part. Again, each symbol here is present for a reason. Continue, console.writeLine. I++ gets hit. Go to the logical condition, put your mouse over I. I has the value 3. Look very carefully. This is true. It's true again by the less than part, not by the equal to part. Console.writeLine. I++. Hop over to here. What's the current value of I? Now I is 4, which means that the logical condition is still true, but it's true by the equal to part of the condition. You see this? And then console.writeLine runs. Hop back over to I++. Put your mouse over I. Now the current value of I is 5. That means that the logical condition is false, which means that look what happens to the execution. The control here is it skips to this closing curly brace right there on main. Let me shut this down. The output itself is not too important. To focus on the details, let me zoom back out here. You'll do a lot better in programming. Stop trying to just always code. Instead, ask, what am I coding? Why am I coding it? What's going to happen when I do this, that, or the other? And you've got to learn to be very meticulous.